Oh, while I get myself, I have to go back to the beginning of this one. Where's the other one? All right, I think we're ready to begin. So thank you all for joining us again this afternoon for our, I guess this is our 8th of 10 sessions on the Way of the Bodhisattva, the 8th chapter. So we will begin this after with the Vajra lineage prayer. You might recognize the melody more or less. Maybe I should sing a couple lines first so that you all get an idea of what it's like when we all start together. I'll sing like the first 4 lines. So let me just bring that up on the screen for those of you who are watching on the screen. Those of you who are here, you have it on your desks. The Vajra lineage prayer. So it goes like this. Great Vajradhara Telo Naromarpa Milarepa the Dharma Lord Khenpo, but knower of 3 times Karma, and lineage holders of the elder 4 and younger 8. The Driguntal Kunsalpa, glorious Drogba, and so forth. Okay, you kind of know that melody already. All right, so let's actually do this. So let's please recite this with faith and devotion, and all the masters and all the schools are listed here on these pages and then in the teachings, and as we recite this. Om great Vajradhara Telo Naromarpa Milarepa the Dharma Lord Khenpo, but knower of 3 times Karma, and lineage holders of the elder 4 and younger 8. The Drigunta Salva, glorious Drogba, and so forth. Protectors of all beings, the unequal Dabokaju, who have gained mastery of the profound path Mahamudra. O Kaju Gurus, heed my prayer, your lineage I uphold. Please bless me so I may adopt your ways of liberation. Just as revulsions taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator does not cling to any food or wealth, and severs all the ties that bind me to this present life. Please bless me to be unattached to honor or to gain. Just as devotion's taught to be the head of meditation, continually this meditator supplicates the Guru, who opens up the doorway to the trove of pith instructions. Please bless me so that uncontrived devotion may well forth. As non-distractions taught to be the core of meditation, this meditator just remains not altering at all. The fresh and pristine essence of whatever thought occurs. Please bless me to be free from thinking there's a meditation. Just as it's not the essence of all thoughts is Dharmakaya, not anything at all, and yet arising in all ways, appearing for this meditator in unceasing play. Bless me to know samsara and nirvana are not two. In all my future lifetimes may I never be apart from the authentic gurus and embrace the Dharma's glory. May I perfect the qualities of all the paths and levels, and may I swiftly realize the state of Vajra In the Dharma expanse palace of Akanishta is the essence of all Buddhas of the three times, who shows me directly my mind is Dharmakaya. I prostrate to the glorious exalted gurus. Please bless me and all sentient beings that our minds become the Dharma. Please bless us that the Dharma become the path. Please bless us that the path dispel confusion. Bless us that confusion arise as wisdom. And now think to yourselves that we must bring all sentient beings, all of our mothers throughout space, to the state of completely perfect enlightenment, the state of Buddhahood. And in order to do this, we need to develop bodhicitta, relative ultimate bodhicitta. And we not only need to rouse bodhicitta just once, but we need to meditate upon them over and over again. So that is why we need the instructions on these meditations, such as these instructions from the way of the Bodhisattva. So please think to yourselves that you are listening this afternoon with this motivation of bodhicitta. The Dharma that we are listening to is the way of the Bodhisattva by the great being and Bodhisattva Shantideva. The way of the Bodhisattva, entering the way of the Bodhisattva, to get the full title, has 10 chapters, and we are discussing the 8th this year, the chapter on meditation. Chapter on meditation has 2 major parts. There is the section on developing the solitude of body and mind, which we discussed last week, and then this weekend we are discussing the meditations on relative bodhicitta, so the equality of self and other, and the exchanging oneself for other. And these two are kind of in a sequence. We have to sort of realize the equality, the equal importance of all sentient beings before you want to exchange yourself. It's said in some commentaries that you actually you can't really exchange yourself for others until you realize the equality of yourself and others. So you actually have to meditate on it, understand the actual fundamental sameness of all our wishes, and this fundamental sameness of the validity of our wishes, that our wishes are not more important than other ones, in order to really be able to exchange ourselves. In practice in the Tibetan tradition, we usually go straight into the Tonglen meditation. And I think as you do that, as you put yourself in other people, in other beings' shoes, in a sense, then you also develop a sense of the equal importance of their wishes, of their needs, of their sufferings, the needs to dispel their sufferings. In the actual practice, what we do is to follow the instructions on mind training, but this is not contradictory of what it's saying here, that you have to have this idea of the fundamental sameness, equality of all sentient beings in order to be able to exchange ourselves. And so in this section, we have been, this morning we had a bit of what in Tibetan we would call a general general discussion about exchanging oneself for others, going over some of the background and the relationship between the mind training teachings and the Lojong teachings that we have, and these teachings on exchanging ourselves from others. How are these teachings the basis for the mind training that we more commonly practice? Because you aren't going to see any instructions on Tonglen in this text directly. So you might wonder, well, how is it the basis? Well, so that's what we spoke about this morning. It's taking your ego clinging and transferring your ego clinging, instead of clinging to this body and mind as me, clinging to others as being me, in order to decrease our self-cherishing. But here we come to an interesting question, because we say, well, I'm just one person. How can I possibly, as a single person, even begin to think of all these infinite other sentient beings? It's not just like, I mean, if there were a finite, huge number, it'd be one thing, but there are infinite other sentient beings. I mean, just, it's ridiculous. How can we possibly think of ourselves as one person who's able to exchange one for many? How can we do that? Because there's just one. And well, the answer is actually, when we look at ourselves, we think this is just one, but maybe that's not exactly how it really is. As it says in verse 114, which is on page, I've got the mark so I can tell you right away, page 97, if you're looking at the book. In this way, in the same way as we accept that hands and such are body parts, why do we not likewise accept the living are a part of the world? So here the idea is, well, we're already grasping at many things as being one. So if we can grasp at a body that is actually many different things, you've got hands, you've got feet, you've got elbows, you've got spleens, you've got pancreases, you've got all sorts of glands, you have all sorts of parts to your body. If you look at it, on your head, most of you probably have the 21,000 hairs that they say that you have in traditionally it said you have 21,000 hairs. That might be a little bit low for some of you. It's probably a little bit high for me, even if I grew my hair back in. Then you count your body hairs, and it's even more than that. You've got the pores on your body, millions of pores, and you've got millions of cells in your body. And so we take all of these different things and we think of them as being one thing that we need to protect. So why can't we do the same thing? There are millions upon millions of other sentient beings, billions or trillions upon trillions of other sentient beings in this world alone. Why can't we think of them all as being one, as being part of this world that we need to then cherish more than we cherish ourselves? It's the same. So we're not actually one single thing. It's not like we're one single person, one person trying to take care of infinite beings. We're actually a collection of infinite parts that is already looking at infinite parts, trying to exchange the multiple for the multiple. The thought this selfless body is me arose due to habituations. Why? Well, the ideas are me not come with habituation, because you might say to yourself, I can't do it. You know, I'm me. It's easy to think of me as being me because I am me. Well, the only reason you're me is because you think of yourselves as being me, is that, or that we think of ourselves as being me, is because we are used to it from that moment of conception when you say me, with the sperm and ovum come to, when you have that first zygote, great English word, that first zygote up to the point when you are, a fully developed human. We grasp this as being me, a single self. So this is, that's habituation. So you're thinking it's me over and over again, and then other people are telling you, hey, that's you, hey, that's you. You're a little kid, and your mom is saying, oh, look at the baby, look at baby David. And so you get this idea, oh, I'm David. They're saying, you're David, you're David. And so I'm thinking, I'm David, aren't I? This is, so where does that come from? It's habituation. So you can get used to anything, as it says in earlier. There is in the 6th chapter. There is not anything that is not easy with habituation. If you get used to it, You can do it. You can think of it. So you just have to habituate yourself. This is what we mean by meditation. But the Tibetan word for meditation, gom, is kind of like the active form, and the passive form, or I should say the Shantideva, but the form, no, I'll say passive, it's easier. I don't need to bore you with Tibetan grammar. Kom, gompa. So gom is meditation. Kom, I'm sort of emphasizing a little bit, make it easier for you to hear. Gom. So gom and kom. So gom is habituated. So gompa is to make yourself gompa. Sounds exactly the same to you, does it? With Rinpoche, the difference is really, really clear when Rinpoche speaks. His pronunciation is really beautiful. You can really hear the difference between the vowels, between the consonants. Mine are not quite so clear. It's a very subtle difference. But basically, by meditating, by habituating yourself to something, then you get used to it. When you do shamatha meditation, for example, you are habituating yourself to not following the thoughts that occur in your mind so that they eventually pacify. When you do Mahamudra Dzogchen meditation, you habituate yourself to resting in the nature of your mind. When you do any sort of meditation, you are habituating yourself. When you're doing a deity meditation, you are habituating yourself to pure perception, to sacred outlet or pure appearance. And so any meditation we're doing is habituation. But it's the same when we're doing mind training. We're habituating ourselves to the idea of cherishing others more than we cherish ourselves. So the selfless body, there's no me in it. There's nothing in it that's identifiable as me. If any part of your body is chopped off, you're not going to say that's me. If you are an amputee, you're not less of a person. If you are short, you are not less of a person than a person who is tall. Skinny people are not less of a person than someone who's fat. Someone who's fat is not more of a person than someone who's skinny. All the same. We're all the same in being people. I'm being very Tibetan in my use of these words here. I don't care. Really, about but it doesn't matter what you think about it. It's just that body size does not determine whether you're a person or not. It has no effect. You can be an amputee who has only a torso and no limbs. I mean, you have to have one limb. In Tibetan, this is considered a limb. You'd still have to have that one limb. But if you don't have any arms or legs, you're still a person, right? And you still grasp to that whatever parts of body you have left as being me. It's the same. It doesn't matter, big, small, or anything. So that is because of habituation. So why can't we habituate ourselves to thinking of other people as being the me, what we really want to cherish? In other words, why can't we habituate ourselves to cherishing others more than we cherish this body that we pamper so? So though I have done good for others, I'm not conceited or amazed, just as there's no hope for return when I eat my own food myself. So when you think of other beings and you then do something good for them, there's no reason when you are exchanging yourself, when you are doing something to benefit other sentient beings, there's no reason to be upset about it or to be not upset, to be proud about it, no to get arrogant about it. Look at me, I've done something good. Well, you're doing something good for beings that you're grasping at yourself. That you're saying they're me. So all these other sentient beings, you're helping other sentient beings, and there's nothing to be amazed about because you see them as being you, right? So there's nothing to be amazed about. It's like if you're going to eat your own food. Look at me, I'm so good. I can eat my own food all by myself. You can get away with that when you are 18 months old, or maybe 2. But when you're 54, look at me, I'm in the restaurant, I ate my own food all by myself, aren't I a big boy? And you don't have any particular hope of return for it. What I want to just point this out on a literary level, and it's hard to show it on screen if I didn't already, and I didn't think to do this, but if you look in the book, what is it? What page are we on? 96 and 97. So I'll show it on the camera. You've got the bottom of 96. You've got verse 109. Look at this. It says, so though I have done good for others, I'm not conceited or amazed. Solely enjoying helping others, I have no hope for a ripened result. And then you have the same verse, and it's the same. The first couplet is the same in Tibetan and in Sanskrit as well. So though I have done good for others, I'm not conceited or amazed. Just as there's no hope for a return when I eat my own food for myself. This is something that Shantideva, so I have to get into literary criticism. I had too much training in literary criticism in college, and although that was over 30 years ago, I still have the habits from it. This is the habituation. So, you've got these parallels. Shantideva often has these parallel passages, and they come up, especially in this chapter, parts where he's repeating a literary device to kind of show slight difference in the meaning. All right, that's enough literary criticism. Thus, just as I protect myself from any blame, no matter how slight, I'll cultivate compassionate, protective thoughts for beings. So when we're looking and exchanging ourselves for others, we see other sentient beings as being me, as being more important than ourselves. Then what do we do for ourselves normally? We cling to ourselves as me, and there's any blame, any problem. If you get accused of even the slightest thing, the immediate reaction is say, no, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. No matter how small it was. Someone forgot to clean out the sink after whatever, No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Right? Even if it's a really minor, we try to protect ourselves from it. So just as we try to protect ourselves from minor, insignificant things, as like you didn't do your share of the housework. It might not seem so insignificant, but for other sentient beings, they also have the same thing. So why aren't we trying to protect other sentient beings for the same thing? So here you cultivate compassionate, protective thoughts for beings. So you think about it over and over again. Other sentient beings don't like being accused either justly or unjustly. And if even it's a small, minor thing, they don't enjoy it. So what can we do to protect other sentient beings, even for other sentient beings? So when we're talking about the suffering of sentient beings, we're talking about the entire gamut of suffering. Everything from the most minor, trivial little mental hurts that have actually no basis at all, to the greatest suffering at all. It's easy for us to think about people who are being tortured in a war zone, or who are being blown to bits in a war zone. It's easy to kind of think about that, and we realize that's suffering. But the great Bodhisattvas see it's not just the huge sufferings, but also the small suffering. Every suffering. No suffering is too small, too insignificant to want to free ourselves from them. This is why Avalokiteshvara, from his compassion, blessed his name, to soothe the fears that wanderers have even of being among people. So the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, when he was earlier on the path, he made these aspirations, and there were a long series of aspirations. I'll protect all sentient beings from being killed, from being dismembered, from all the different types of sufferings that they might encounter. And it came down to even saying, may they even just by hearing my name be freed of any fear or panic of being in crowds. There are people who are afraid of being among other, they're agoraphobic, This is a real fear that people have. It seems, on one level, it seems kind of small, but it's not for the people who have it. And so Avalokiteshvara blessed his name. He made that prayer. May just hearing his name free people of agoraphobia. Now, we haven't tried this in clinical practice. Those of you who are in practice might, I don't know if this works. Teach them the name of Avalokiteshvara. But if you think about it, having the faith and the devotion can help us overcome a lot of things. So, but that's the prayer that Avalokiteshvara had. So we can have the same prayer. May we be able to free all sentient beings from all suffering. So no sentient being, no matter how small, all sentient beings, no matter how small, and all sufferings, no matter how insignificant they seem, they're all sufferings that we need to relieve all sentient beings of. There's no limit to our compassion and our need to practice mind training. Do not turn back from difficulty, from the power of habituation. Though someone's name did once strike fear, without them you will feel no joy. So the things that we think to ourselves, this is really hard. I can't do it. There's no way I can do it. You might think to yourself, at lunch we were speaking about organ donation. Now, actually, when you do organ donation, you're not actually dead when they take the organs out of your body. You're a goner. You're a certified goner, but you're not actually dead yet. So while you're a certified goner, they take out your eyes, your lungs, or whatever, your heart, whatever organs they can use, and they harvest them to give to other people. So this is actually probably an extremely terrifying, of course, none of us have been through it. Yeah. It's a terrifying and difficult experience to go through. And you might think to yourself, oh, no way I can do it. Absolutely no way I can do it. I can't do that. I can't give myself away like that. My body is too precious. I don't want to be confronted with that fear at the time of death. I don't want to feel that terror of, they're cutting into me and I'm, yeah, okay, I know I'm a goner, but I'm not gone yet. I'm not dead yet, as they said in Monty Python with the live organ transplants. It's a little bit gentler than they did in the Monty Python movie, but still, I ain't dead yet. I'm not dead yet, or whatever he said. So we're not dead yet, and yet at the same point, they're taking your liver. And so how are you going to feel? Because you might be worried, oh, I won't be able to maintain my composure and have good. So before you get to that point, if you sign that organ donor card, you have to meditate. You have to think to yourself, I want to be able to help other sentient beings. If my body is no longer going to be useful to me, at least may the parts of it be useful to others. Take my corneas, take my heart. Like the Billie Holiday song. So take it all, please. If we train ourselves now in thinking like this, then when we come to the point when we had whatever traumatic injury it is that means it's the end of our lives, but we still have useful organs that can save another's, then we want to be able to say, okay, we're going to be in that coma and you can't say anything physically, but you want to be able to rejoice and say, excellent. I'm actually able to give away my corneas, my heart, everything. There's someone who's going to, I watched my father on dialysis for 10 years and it's a dreadful process. It's like, I can actually give my kidneys away and they'll help someone, have a decent life where they don't have to go to the hospital 3 times a week and all this. And to actually think like this, and if you meditate on this over and over again, and if you remember what we spoke about this morning about the taking your future suffering on yourself now, remembering the suffering of having whatever traumatic accident that happened to you, or whatever it was that happened to you, that is a result of your past karma. The fact that you are experiencing it now is an incredible delight. The fact that people are cutting you away up and taking your organs now is also a result of your past karma and the result of your aspirations. You signed that organ donor card, please take me. And so here you are. You can actually do it. So if you meditate on the mind training now, then when you get to the point in the future that actually it's happening, then at that point you're going to be mentally ready and there won't be any difficulty to doing it. But if we sign the organ donor card, and then forget until we get to the point of death, and it's like, wait a minute, what did I sign up for? I'm not sure about this. It's too late to say it. I'm in a coma and I can't say it, but I'm not ready. So we've got to habituate ourselves. It's actually an excellent way. What they talk about in the sutras is that the bodhisattvas need to be willing to give away everything, even parts of their own body. There's so many stories about bodhisattvas saying, oh, you need a piece of human flesh in order to cure your illness. Hang on. Big chunk of thigh. Here you go. You need an arm? Oh, yeah, sure, have it. So, not that we're able to do it now, but if you think years about it now, if you are able to train yourself now, then you will get to the point where maybe you'll think it's possible. And because human beings, we actually have a lot greater capacity than we think. I think that any of us, if we make the resolution and keep it in mind, remember, oh yeah, I've signed that organ donor card when we get to that moment, they're being dismembered, then it's like, wow. Anyway, that's the anything, even that difficult point is going to be easy if you're habituated. And this also comes with any of it, all the ideas of, like we have the, when you hear about these stories about the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, am I going off on a tangent? Yes, but that's okay. When we hear the stories about the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we get kind of afraid. It's like what they did and what the difficulty they go through. Not just the ones that you hear about in the Jataka tales or the sutras, where they tell these stories that kind of sound almost like fantastic myths. How could someone actually have done that? You think this can't really be so. It's just a story. All those Jungian archetypes and those myths, it can't be real. Well, you think. It might have been real. There are also stories about people who've done extraordinary things. You wouldn't think that they'd be able to do it. I mean, if you look at the example of Milarepa, you look at the example of Karat Gongchung, and even ordinary examples, people who do extraordinary things, ordinary people who do extraordinary things in certain circumstances. This all comes from deciding that you want to do it and putting others before yourself. So we can do all of it with habituation. We have a lot greater capacity. So this is what we mean by this verse, that we shouldn't turn back. The second half of the verse, where it talks about though someone's name did once strike fear, without them you will feel no joy. What this is saying is that you can get to become comfortable with just about anything. For example, there are people who at one point were just like your people you hated most of anyone else. Later, conditions change, and you get to know them and actually become really good friends. The classic stories are stories from the sutra of two kings who were incredible enemies. And then a condition happened where they became friends, and they became like bosom buddies, inseparable friends. They're just the situation, you just change from being one to being the other. Because when we think of someone else with fear, we're only thinking of them with fear because of our own habituation. When we think of someone else as a friend, it's only because of our own habituation. So if we habituate ourselves to thinking of other beings as friends, to thinking of them, well, then naturally it's more easy. So all those who wish to swiftly give protection to themselves and others should practice the most excellent secret, the exchange of self and other. So if we want to quickly achieve that ability to really bring benefit to other sentient beings, this is the practice we need to do. This will bring us to the only way we can truly give protection to other sentient beings is by achieving Buddhahood. And the fastest way to do this is by developing bodhicitta, by exchanging ourselves from others, thinking of other sentient beings is more important than ourselves. You might think to yourselves, oh, I'm going to do Mahamudra practice, Dzogchen practice, or whatever, and I don't need this compassion stuff. Do a little bit of mind training. Yeah, it's kind of nice. I'll do some mind training, but I'm really going to just sit and meditate on the nature of the mind. But if you really want to get anywhere in your meditation on the nature of the mind, you have to have two things. You have to have compassion and devotion. Devotion we speak about a lot, but in like the aspiration of Mahamudra that I think some of you have been looking at towards the end, I think it's the 25th stanza. It's like when unbearable compassion arises in your being. So you've got to have unbearable compassion. You've got to feel such great compassion for other sentient beings that you can hardly bear to sit with yourself. When you feel that, then because of the strength of that feeling, it's very easy to recognize the nature of your mind. Similarly with devotion, we have extremely intense devotion. It's easier to recognize the nature of your mind. So here, by meditating on the exchange of self and other, you're developing that intense compassion so strong that you can hardly bear it. And when you have that, then if you're also practicing Mahamudra at the same time, then it's easier to recognize the nature of what the mind is because it's brilliantly clear. The compassion is so intense. Due to attachment to our bodies, we're scared by even the smallest fright. Who wouldn't abhor this fearsome body as if it were an enemy? So all of our difficulties actually come from attachment, primarily attachment to our bodies. Also, of course, we're attached to our reputations and so forth. But first of all, it's to our bodies. We're worried about some small thing that's going to potentially cause us harm. Last night, I was going to bed, and there was all of a sudden some sort of a noise in the building, or the wind, or something, I think. I was like, what's that? Did someone get in? It's like, don't be silly. That's what door's locked. The apartment door is locked. You know, no one got in. It's the wind. But still, it's like that sound is like, is someone there? And that's because of our fright. You know, someone's going to come and do something to harm my body or take my stuff, right? So this is all because of attachment to the body. So why are we so attached to this body? In fact, it's actually like our problems come from the body. So why are we attached to the body? I look so good. I feel like I'm in shape. I'm all this and blah, 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 blah. I want to look better. I do all this to get in shape and look better. And yet it doesn't do us any good. So we should actually not see it as maybe subvert this fearsome body as if it were an enemy. Actually, if all our harm comes because of the body, then why would we like it? From the desire to cure the illness of hunger, thirst, and such, the body will make you kill birds, fish, and deer, and wait in ambush by the road. You want to take care of your body, and so what are you going to do? Particularly for hunger, you know, you wait, you go hunting, you plant a garden, you use pesticides, organic, of course. There's still pesticides though. You still do things that because you want to do something for your body. Or people do anything, you know, lots of things. So if it's this desire to cure the illness of hunger, so you have the pain or the illness of hunger and thirst, and so you'll do anything to cure it. So what good is this body to us, or what good is the attachment to the body, really? And if it makes you kill your parents or steal what's offered, the 3 jewels, for sake of gain or else respect, so you'll be burned in the incessant, no one who's wise would want that body, nor would they shield or venerate it. Who would not look at it and see an enemy? Who would not scorn it? So the same thing with our body. It's attachment to our body, or attachment to our reputation, attachment to how people see us and see our bodies, then we'll do anything. So some people even kill their parents out of a desire to protect themselves, or out of a desire for gain, insurance money, or whatever. I don't know, the inheritance, get it quicker, and just pop off mom and dad. Or you'll steal offerings to the 3 jewels. These are both very heavy karmas. The killing parents, of course, are the inexpiable karma, the heinous karmas, heinous actions. And then the stealing offerings of 3 jewels are also a very heavy offering, because you're stealing from the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, because the greatness of the field, then the action becomes worse. And if the result of this is that you're going to be born in the incessant is the lowest hell. It's called the incessant because the suffering there never lets up. It never ceases. It's unrelenting, incessant. So if we're doing this for the sake of the body, why are we happy about the body? It's the body. The body made me do it. So why do you like the body? Why would you shield or venerate it? Who would not look at it and see an enemy? Actually, most of our suffering comes from attachment to the body. The attachment to ourself localized in the attachment to the body. So who would not scorn it? So it's the way we normally think, you know, it's like you're thinking about giving something. If I give this, what will I enjoy? Such selfish thoughts are the way of fiends. If I enjoy, what can I give? Such altruism is divine dharma. This is the way we need to change our thoughts. So normally you think, okay, I can give this much, but I need to leave a little bit in return. This month I can afford to give that much, and then I'll get a bit off my tax return. That's good, but I'll still have plenty. And then I can, you know, go to a few more restaurants. Instead of thinking, how can I give? How can I give? If I keep this money for doing this or that, then what can I give to other people? What can I give away? So, of course, we normally think about this with money in our current society, but anything. If I keep this for me, I can't give it to someone else. Normally we think, if I've got to keep something for me. So instead of thinking that, what can I give to other sentient beings? In other words, cherishing other sentient beings more than we cherish ourselves. So such selfish thoughts are the way of fiends. The way of fiends, you might not actually feel like a fiend when you're thinking like this. Okay, well, I'm going to give, I'll give $100 to the worthwhile charity. And I'll get my tax write-off. I'll have done something good, but I'll still have plenty of money in the pot. And I'll be able to eat, still live a good life. It'll be okay. Everyone benefits, we think. But actually what happens when you do that, you're indulging your attachment. As you indulge your attachments to yourself, then you are, I feel like I'm talking about myself, actually. I really do. I'm criticizing myself, my own actions. I'm a total hypocrite here. So what I do is I, give a little bit away and keep most of it for me. I have to be really honest. I'm sorry. We have to be, if you're going to be a Dharma practitioner, you have to be really honest with your bad habits, no matter how. You have to, what is it? The other day, you should, how you should go and announce your faults to others in all the directions. So I have to follow, this is my own fault right here. What am I going to give to others? Well, I'm keeping this pile for me. I try to increase the generosity, but it's never quite enough. Always keeping something back. And when you do that, you're increasing your self-cherishing, and someday you're going to miss an opportunity. Someday that cherishing is then going to increase again because you're keeping it going just a little bit. Then someday you're going to give into it and do a misdeed as a result of that. So you have to actually really look at yourself and see that, because that's what means the way of fiends. It doesn't mean that you're a fiend at the moment you're doing it. You're still a good person, but it's a way of thinking that leads to negative actions. If I enjoy this, what can I give? Such altruism is divine dharma. So if you just freely give away, my other monk friends, many of them are much more generous than me. I assume they just always, you need this, you need this. Tulku Damsha, he is incredibly generous. He is a wonderful example. Sponsoring this, something needs sponsoring. Okay, so do this. He never misses an opportunity to make a gift. I miss plenty. He never misses an opportunity. And when there's even something before people are even thinking about how can I make a gift, he's already thought, okay, I'm going to give money to support this. How can I do this? So we need to be more like Tulku Damsha and less like me. Right? So if I enjoy this, what can I give? Such altruism is divine dharma. If you harm others for your own sake, you'll be tormented in hell and elsewhere. If you are harmed for others' sake, you'll gain everything excellent. So the more you give away, if you harm others for your own sake, if you're acting out of self-interest, particularly in ways that cause harm to others, leads to rebirth in the hell. They're misdeeds, right? You don't want to, they're not beneficial for you or for the other being. Excuse me for a moment. But if you are harmed for others' sake, if you are willing to put yourself in harm's way, no matter what it does, if it's going to protect other sentient beings, then you'll gain everything excellent. Now, of course, it might be a short-term setback, but the ripened result of it will be good. So those who want high rank for themselves become lowly dolts in lower realms, but those who pass it on to others will gain respect in the high realms. So really, we often act out of trying to bring ourselves high rank and so forth. And maybe we'll be able to do this on a temporary level in this lifetime, but the cost of it is very high. Because in the future, if you work to build yourself up in this lifetime, the ripened result of that would be rebirth in the hell realms. And then later on, the compatible result of this is that you will be reborn or the dominant result would be that you're reborn in a low position, stupid, unintelligent, looked down upon in a very low position. So the ultimate result of trying to be respected and liked is that is the exact opposite. If, on the other hand, you always try to make others respected, others look good, if you cherish the others more than yourself, then you'll naturally gain this yourself, even if you don't want it. Like the story I mentioned last night about Langritampa. Was it last night? Langritampa passing away at the moment of death. Did I tell this story? Yeah, so I'll remind all those of you who don't remember. Langritampa was passing away and he was thinking to himself, please let me be reborn in hell. I just want nothing else but to take the place of another sentient being in hell. But this isn't working. I'm seeing all these, gods and goddesses come to welcome me, all these signs I'm going to be high in the higher realms. I'm really upset that I'm going to die, reborn in the higher realms. I really want to, please let me go to hell. Just let me go. But it didn't work out, right? So if you look to take the low positions, then the result of it is that you get a high position. So if we want to be in a position where we're going to be able to practice Dharma in the future, then we need to do everything we can to help others as much as we are able now in this lifetime. If you use others for selfish ends, you will experience servitude. Using yourself for others' sake, you will experience lordliness. So again, this is talking about the karmic results of action. If you basically make use of others, then you're going to be reborn as a servant or in a low position, a slave, or however. If you use yourself for others' sake, then the opposite will happen in a future life. The ripening of that is that you will be born in a high position. It might even happen in this lifetime, actually, depending upon the karmic action. So all happiness in the world is born of wishing others happiness. All suffering in the world is born of wanting happiness for yourself. This is the basic point. If you want to be happy, then you need to work for others. Altruism brings happiness. Acting out of altruism is what actually means. So you have to start with having that altruistic idea, which is, I want to help others. Others are more important than me. And all the suffering in the world is from wanting happiness for yourself. If you look at it, every time you want to get yourself something good and you have to engage in something slightly selfish or negative to do it, or even if you have to, especially if you have to do some real misdeed for it, then it's going to end up reflecting or turning bad for you. What need is there to explain at length? The childish act for their own ends. The sages act for others' sake. Look at the difference between them. Not a whole lot to say. The sages here are the Buddhas. There's no difference between us and Buddhas. There was a time, eons and eons ago, when we were all humans at the same time. Now, maybe at different times for each of us individually, and maybe at the times of different Buddhas. At those times, there was some being who decided, I want to become a Buddha. I want to work, arouse bodhicitta, and decided they wanted to achieve it. And as a result, that being has already achieved enlightenment. And look at us. There's only one reason why. It's because we've been acting for our own sake. The Buddhas act for others' sake, or the sages act for others' sake. That's why they have become Buddhas. It's the only difference. Buddha nature is the same, whether you're selfish or not. But whether you want to reveal the Buddha nature, that comes out of acting for others' sake. If you do not exchange your pleasures for other beings' miseries, you will not achieve Buddhahood or have any happiness in samsara. No need to mention the next life. In this life, servants who don't work and masters who do not pay wages will also not achieve their aims. So verses 131 and 32. So basically, if we want to achieve Buddhahood, there's only one way to do it, and that is to act on bodhicitta, fulfill those aspirations of Shantideva that we spoke about this morning. May I be a bridge for sentient beings, their boat, the traveler of the land for those who want it. For those who want a servant, may I be their slave? Only by acting like that will we be able to achieve Buddhahood. And forget about Buddhahood. If we don't act like that and we're acting on selfish reasons instead, then what are we going to end up doing? We might be okay in this lifetime, but in our next lifetime, if we don't do enough good in this lifetime, the chance of encountering the Dharma life in the next lifetime, even if we're lucky enough to be born human, are slim. And then what are we going to do? When we're born, most people who are born in this country, we have a very materialistic outlook on things. And we think that human beings have certain rights, the limits on the beings that have the rights. We don't think that animals have many rights. Well, sometimes now we're beginning to change a little bit, but there are different opinions, and we're generally quite happy to use other sentient beings for our own selfish aims. Food is the big one. Shoes. Right here in Maine, lobster, clams, whale hogs, pepperoni. You know, this is all coming from other sentient beings. It's all cherishing other sentient beings. And so, of course, you know, there's a difference between eating meat and killing the animal. And if you have eating meat that has been killed by someone else, not for your sake, is not a misdeed per se. But it's a sign of not having much compassion, or of not having adequate compassion. I'm being stronger than the Karmapa was, and he was saying it. The Karmapa phrased it as, maybe it's a sign that you don't have enough compassion, right? So we have to look at this. We have to look at, do we really treasure ourselves more than we treasure those other sentient beings? What is the difference? So this is, again, we limit ourselves. If you're born in this country and don't come into the Dharma, which the vast majority of people in the United States don't, then you're going to, you know, you might, you know, have some sort of partially vegetarian ideas, but it's unlikely. You're going to use other beings, use other animals, and the chances are that you're going to do something bad. Someday someone's going to give you a fresh oyster and you're going to eat it. Or you might think that it's worthwhile to go off into military service and then end up going and killing. Or participating in a unit that kills. And even if you're not killing yourself because you're participating in a unit that is engaging in that, then you're also accumulating the karma. Because that's because you don't understand. If we don't take this opportunity we have now to train our minds now, so that in the future, in our next lifetime, even if we are, so that not only are we born human, but we're also born human in and have with the capacities and the habits to be able to progress further down the path. Just being born human in our next life is not of much use, because it's going to only last for well, if you lived 100 or 104 years, your last 10 years are you're spending, you know, eating only soup, except for the person who ran you know, some sort of a race, he broke a speed record as a 100-year-old. You know, but a few 100-year-olds are doing that. So even if you live 100 years, you're not going to be doing much for the last few of those years. So if we want to make sure that we're going to be able to continue doing our Dharma practice in the future, we have to take the steps now, which means habituating ourselves now, beginning to cherish others more than we cherish ourselves. No need to mention the next life. In this life, servants who don't work and masters who do not pay wages will also not achieve their aims. So you have to do something. You have to use what you have now for the benefit of others. It's like we're in this position where we have a certain leisure, we have opportunities. If we don't use it to work for others, if we don't pay the wages, if we don't do things to actually benefit other sentient beings, then we're not going to achieve our aims. Just as a boss who refuses to pay their workers they're not going to work for him. You go to a job and the boss says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay you. You're out of there. So it's the same. Fools throw away the perfect pleasure of gaining seen and unseen joys and causing others misery. They take on terrible suffering. So gaining seen and unseen joys here, the seen joys, it refers to those results that happen in this life. Okay, the ones that we will be able to see in this life. Unseen refers to those that we can't see now, but we will see them in the future lives. So that talks about future joys. So the fools, people who don't understand what's going on, and this is the same word that we were speaking about last week. It also means children, people who just don't really know how to think. acting out of the selfish reasons, they do things that will end up, for the sake of temporary pleasure, they do things that in the longer term, the medium or the long term, are going to cause them terrible suffering. So all of the violence in the world and all the fear and suffering arise from clinging to a self. What does that ogre do for me? So all the suffering, if you think about it, all the suffering in the world, all the pain and illness, everything comes out of clinging to a self. Some of it comes out because of just the result of what you're doing. You're clinging to yourself. You're not seeing what is actually the nature of how things are. And therefore that causes pain because you're too busy clinging to yourself to see the nature. Sometimes you have painful experiences that seem like they they come from nowhere. You have a car accident where you're not at fault and you get injured, or some sort of problem where you have some sort of congenital illness. And so these are results of karma. They would come from from ego clinging and acting out of ego clinging in previous lifetime. So all of this comes out of clinging to a self. So what does this ogre? So what does the self clinging do for me? So the self that you're clinging to, you don't really know the self. It's not, the problem isn't your 5 aggregates. Your body isn't the problem. Your mind, your feeling, conception, formation, and consciousness are not the problem per se. What the problem is when you're clinging to it as me and thinking of it as more important than all other sentient beings or than any other sentient being. That's what causes problems. So this is like an ogre. It's like a monster. It's actually going to, just do something terrible to you. Without relinquishing yourself, you can't abandon suffering, just as without relinquishing fire, you cannot avoid getting burned. If you don't want to get burned, what do you have to do? You have to stay away from the fire. Get away from it. If you are holding a burning stick and you don't want to get burned, you have to put that stick down before it burns you. If you're sitting there holding that stick, watching it as the flames get closer and closer to your hand, you are going to get burned. The same way with ego clinging. Without relinquishing yourself, without relinquishing the clinging to a self, because there's no self other than you're clinging to it. If you don't give up that clinging, then you're going to experience suffering. If you do not cling to a self, then even if you experience things that would be painful, they do not cause suffering. For example, the 16th Karmapa passing away and not feeling any particular suffering, even though his body was filled with cancer in a position that would have been painful for any ordinary being. Why was it not painful for him? Because he wasn't clinging to himself. No ego clinging, no pain. It takes a while to get there, but we can do it. If you give it up, then then the situations that cause other pain will actually not. In fact, it'll be the other way around. Therefore, to calm harms to myself and pacify others' suffering, I'll give myself away to others and cling to others as myself. And so here, this is like the resolve of the bodhicitta. Thinking about we need to use ourselves for the benefit of others, taking this idea, okay, these are the harms that come from ego clinging. This is what Shantideva has been talking about. Ego clinging does not help. So how do you counter ego clinging? The best way to do it is by exchanging yourself by others. This means giving myself away to others and cling to others as myself. So I give this body and mind to others. So whatever anyone else needs to do with this body and mind, fine, let it happen. You need something, come and get it. And then what can I do to benefit others? So cling to others and think about what can I do? So instead of thinking about your body and your mind as what can I do to help myself, you think what can I do to help others? This is the basic point of this. So therefore, to calm harms to myself and pacify others' as suffering, will give myself away to others and cling to others as myself. Mind, understand with certainty. Now Shantideva is taking a little bit more Mind, you better watch out, mind. Mind, understand with certainty that I am owned by other beings. Now, do not think of anything else than benefiting sentient beings. The only thing, mind, the only thing you should think about, mind. So here what Shantideva is doing, it's like you've got two parts to your mind. What Paolo Sloterman calls, you've got the mind that's the antidotal mind, that's the antidote to ego clinging, and you've got ego clinging. And so this is the antidote speaking to ego clinging. Another way you can think about it is maybe a little bit more, what do we say? A little bit more Western. You've got your guardian angel and you've got your devil. The devil is ego clinging. The guardian angel is, exchanging yourself for others. The guardian angel is saying to the ego clinging, you watch it now. I'm giving you away. I'm being owned. So I'm owned by other beings. So you don't think of anything else. Don't think of anything else than benefiting sentient beings. So it's like Shantideva already said at the beginning in that prayer we spoke about, I'm giving myself away. Let anyone use my sentient being in any way that doesn't cause themselves harm. Take it, sure. Yeah, use my body however you want. So now I've given it away. If you've given something away and you say, wait a minute, no, you can't quite have it yet. Like if someone gives you something and says, yeah, someone gives you a car. Oh, wait a minute, no, I need it Tuesday. They haven't really given it, right? It is not right to gain selfish ends with eyes and such that others own. It is not right to treat them badly with eyes that are for their own benefit. So your body, now you've given it to other sentient beings, so let's use it for the sake of other sentient beings. That's the basic Bodhisattva vow. So I'm going to use everything I can, everything I have, all my body and possessions and everywhere. I've given it to other sentient beings. Now, you haven't actually physically given it to other sentient beings, but that means that you use it all completely for their sake. Devote everything you have to the benefit of all sentient beings. And using your eyes and so forth, the rest of your body to harm other sentient beings is contradictory of what you have already promised to do. I want to make sure I get to the right point. Yeah. Therefore, I will put beings first. Anything I see on my body, I'll take away and put to use for sake of benefiting others. So you're going to think of other beings as more important than yourselves. Anything that you have, anything on your body, you say, okay, this is for the benefit of others. Clothes, anything. Clothes, jewelry, anything, whatever you have, give it away. If it's going to be helpful for another sentient being, they need it, then you give it. So that's what we do. So then the next portion we've come to is the actual meditations on exchanging oneself for others. And so we'll just go through this brief presentation this evening or this afternoon, and tomorrow we'll get into the actual meditations on exchanging oneself for others. So the overview says, make the inferior and so forth yourself and make yourself the other. And meditate without any thought on envy, rivalry, and pride. So here, what this is saying, so the actual meditation that is taught here is the meditations on exchanging yourself for others. In other words, clinging to others as being you. And so you do this in terms of three groups of people. So the three groups of people would be your inferiors. So normally we think about these in terms of human inferiors, like people of a lower social standing, people who are hard up or whatever. Especially in ancient India, there was almost always someone lower than yourself. Even if you're the lowest on the totem pole of humans, even if you're on the sort of the lowest level of a human society, there are still beings who are lower than you. They're all the animals, and dogs and insects and all of these other animals. So you take those beings as yourself, and then you look back at this body and mind and you say, he thinks he's a bodhisattva. Come on, he's doing nothing to help me, basically. Then you exchange yourself for peers, people who are your equals. And you sort of look back at this body and mind and say, come on, what do you think he has? I'm talking about he because I'm me. I'm talking about myself. So look at Khenpo David. Who's he? Come on. And then you meditate on rivalry for yourself as a way to look at your own faults, look at your own problems, see yourself from the other perspective, then you would imagine yourself as someone being superior, social, whatever level is. Come on, that guy, come on. Who does he think who is? He's nothing, right? So meditating upon yourself in these different positions. In other words, putting yourself in the position of others and then looking back at yourself. So that's the main, those are the main meditations on envy, rivalry, and pride. And so we will speak about those tomorrow. And so at this point today, we have, again, a few more minutes left at the end of this session. So perhaps people have questions or something you're wondering about. Anyone online or in person? Well, I don't see anyone raising their hand at this point. Oh, have we got some? Oh, Linda. Yes. Okay. So you unmute yourself in just a moment. I'm going to mute myself.
Hi. Thank you, Khenpo, for these teachings. They've been really good. Lots to think about. I was kind of curious when you were talking about organ donation and just the view on DNR. When life comes to that, if there's any perspective on that, I would be interested to know. Thank you.
So the question for those of you, did you hear the question? Did I turn up the volume high? So what's the issue with, what about DNR, do not resuscitate orders? So, boy, this is a tough one. And there's not really anything I can actually think of in terms of the scriptures. In general, when we talk about a precious human body, just being in a human body as long as we can means that we're putting off any fall that might happen to a worse body. So in that sense, prolonging our human life as long as possible is good. But there is a point where you just can't fool impermanence. And so I'm not sure, I don't know of any particular scriptural, if you're asking, what does it say in the scriptures? Well, it's, if there's something that in there, I haven't read about it, I haven't seen it, and so I can't say what would come from it. But I think it's an issue where you have to really take the balance. Now, often when we talk about do not resuscitate orders, we're talking about it for people who were, like if you're a guardian for someone, or if you have the medical power of attorney. Is that the right term? I'm sort of out of it sometimes. If you have that relationship where you're taking care of someone, so that person does you for an elderly parent or some other person or a spouse, if they have a DNR, then what do you do when it gets to that point? And that is an interesting question. I mean, so I don't know that I can give you a good answer. In general, you have to think about what it is that really gives, what is it that makes a human life valuable? And human life is valuable not because of the things that we're able to do or unable to do physically. And so no matter how disabled we might seem from one perspective, as long as we have the ability to think virtuous thoughts, to think of others with love, then that human life is worthwhile. If you're no longer able to do that, then it's a different matter. But how do we know, particularly if it's someone else, how do we know that they're no longer able to do that? So I don't have a good answer to that question. It's really something to think about. But what is it that makes it worthwhile? The advantage of the human life is that you can practice the Dharma. Practicing the Dharma is primarily an issue of mind. So if your mind is able to function on some level, This might not be a level that would be evident on the outside. I mean, they do talk about people who are in comas who are actually fairly aware of what's going around and can think about things and can understand things. If that person is able to, if you yourself are in that position, you have trained yourself well enough before you get to that point, then you might be able to do Dharma practice at that point at some level. Even for someone else who is in that coma is prolonged for a certain degree, then, if they don't have any Dharma practice, at least while they're in the coma, they haven't fallen into the lower realms. Yet, at the same time as we say that, we have to recognize that there are limits, and you can't cheat impermanence forever. You can't deceive the Lord of Death. And so I think it's a very individual situation. In the context of our modern society and the way we do things in the modern world, is that often it's a question, because we are able to resuscitate people and prolong, or medically, people are able to resuscitate people and keep them alive in some fashion, however whatever it might seem, but it might seem some limited fashion. So we have the system of do not resuscitate or other orders. And so this is something that you have to work out with your family. And of course, this is just the way we do it in general. This is kind of worldly advice. We have to do it in general in terms of our society. Sometimes you have people who have pretty good certainty. And they're certain, and they're not necessarily Buddhists. They may be Christians or whatever. Often people who've had near-death experiences are not afraid of what's going to happen at the time of death. And they might think to themselves, I'm not worried about me. I know I'm going to be okay. I've been partway down this road before, and I know what's waiting for me on the other side. I'm not upset about this. For that sort of person, there may be, they may prefer that. I think my father was like that when he was coming to the end of his life. So there's a balance of just recognizing the fact of impermanence, but also understanding the karmic cause and effect, and thinking about what makes human life human. It's your mind, your ability to understand, ability to think, ability to have loving thoughts. And that's the most important thing. So that's not intended to be a definitive answer, I'm sorry, but things to think about.
No, I appreciate your thoughts on it.
Get this back. I have to.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate your thoughts on it. And honestly, it never entered my mind in terms of the teachings until this afternoon. So it is something to think about. Thank you.
All right, any questions? Any questions from the studio audience or the? All right, so then why don't we recite the dedication prayers? And we will begin with the long life prayer for the Karmapa, and then we will recite the long life prayer for Trungpa Rinpoche, the new one, or the recent one, but Mother Galen Karmapa. We'll recite it 3 times, twice in Tibetan, once in English. And then we'll close with the prayers for rebirth and Sukhavati. And we'll do those, let's see, we did them in English last night, so we'll do them in Tibetan today. And then the dedication of merit. Samsum dorje kamsuratenje taye chele sundro. Ambedu zini chime tse bombar chilvez. Nyamni sunjo chagile bate wa pa me begelezo. Jime tawe gejan chero shinglong do chugi yura sitva. Ketun drube luto yongzo bamawe senge chene tsoshi zo jadam jase tuo chena dhanadam drazon drubanam yitu daki Lasan geweten togi jishin memba gemedrun joji same yeshedam beduzini chimete bombar kyuedze nyamye sunjo shagile zembatewa urba mebengele zujime tawe geyam chedro rilongdo shigi yura sitema kedun rube luto yonzo bamawe senge jene tozhevo. By the power of the victors of their foremost offering, the gods and sages and cities, and by the strength of the truth of my pure intentions, may my prayer be accomplished without any obstacles. Between your hands, united in equipoise, you hold the vase of deathlessness that collects the nectar of the highest undefiled wisdom. Lord of life, Amitayus, grant auspiciousness. Far and wide you sound the roar of fearless view. Up to the peak of existence blazes your turquoise mane of the Dharma of scripture and realization. You have perfected the physical strength of being learned, venerable, and accomplished. Lion of speech, I ask that you live long. By the power of the victors of their foremost offspring, of the gods and sages and siddhas, and by the strength of the truth of my pure intentions, may my prayer be accomplished without any obstacles. I supplicate that the lamas be healthy. I supplicate that their lives be supremely long. I supplicate that their activities spread and flourish. Bless me to never be separate from the lamas. May the glorious lamas' lotus feet be firm. May happiness come to all throughout space. May I and all others gather the accumulations, purify obscurations, and swiftly be brought to Buddhahood. Emaho Mosar Sanje Navataye Daye Sujo Tuje Chambo Dayendu Samba Tuchen Tom Nam La Sangye Jansemba Me Koje Deje Ngozar Bantu Me Pa Yi Dewa Chen She Chawe Shengam Der Miu Dine Tsepu Jurmata Kewa Shengi Barma Chuparu Deru Jene Nangde Shalom Sho Deke Dagi Manan Tapadi Chodru Zanje Jansem Tamjegi Gemeru Bar Jinji Lamdulo Tadyata Panchendriya Ava Buddha swa chodo jawa seje gon so ni zola je iran dagi tu sum ke sapa kunjo sum la chubambo Yahweh Temba Pejur Jigewa Semjen Kunang Wo Rogu Sanje Toju Jigeta Tamje Chidude Dagi Jula Minjur Chidumni Dane Toto Tere Nemen Yamdo Pel Sendir Sajunen Jurji Namji Tsebe Jurmata Dewa Chendu Ke Jurji Jene Beme Kajete Luten de la Sanje Chandra domne jisido drulbeto vadem barsho Chandra domne jisido drulbeto vadem barsho Sanam de tam jesibani tomne bedranam pamchene Kegana chibala chumbai Sibe sole roa by this merit may we attain omniscience, defeat the enemy, wrongdoing and free all wanderers from the ocean of existence, churned by great waves of birth, age, sickness, and death. All right. Thank you all very much. So I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning. Impermanence willing. Okay, so thank you.